Welcome to the Complete Story series where I take trade paperbacks and single issues and I break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then I read them dramatically back to you, adding in music and voices, allowing you to understand what's happening in current comic books or your favorite characters or your favorite video games or your favorite movies right here at the Comicstorian channel. Today we're going to be starting up the brand new Spider-Man run written by Nick Spencer. The first storyline is Back to the Basics. Or Back to Basics. It's one of those two. But in this storyline, we're going to discover where Peter Parker is right now. Right back where he started 10 years ago. Down on his luck, nothing going his way, and today, we're going to see how bad that can turn out for Mr. Peter Parker.
There's a reason we all tell ourselves stories. The details they focus on, the ones we leave out. The order we put them in, it all matters. Sometimes a lot. It's those stories that get us through the day or the hard times. As Peter Parker, there's one story that I play over while everything else goes wrong. It's the one where I'm on top of the world, where I feel safest, where I'm loved because we're all together. I even see it in my sleep, that is, if I get any. Peter is then woken up by a loud boom, and he begins to hear one of his roommates, Fred Myers, or as some of the other heroes know him as, the supervillain Boomerang, shouting at a video game. Peter sighs as he starts to get dressed, wishing that he never had roommates, but his other, Randy Robertson, son of his current and best friend, kinda helps. Peter grumbles to himself why he's even up at 5:40 in the morning, and Randy asks why is he complaining. Didn't he have an early morning press conference at ESU anyway? Peter tells him no, that's Tuesday, and Randy says, what day do you think it is? After making an awkward face, Peter tells him the other Tuesday. But in Peter's defense, he's had a lot in his mind. Like right now, those weird alien facehuggers invaded Earth, and it's taking all of planet's best heroes to just hold them back. But when Spider-Man shows up, the other heroes weren't exactly thrilled to see him, which is completely understandable, actually. Quick flashback. A few weeks ago, Peter went to go stop the Kingpin from, well, just being an all-around bad guy. Except for some reason, and people may think it's because of the Reality Stone, Wilson Fisk became elected mayor of New York. But instead of doing something nefarious, Kingpin was offering him the key to the city. At first, Peter thought maybe this is a good thing. Just think of all the doors that he could open up with a giant key. Peter then said, wait, this is some kind of a trick. I'm gonna stick to regular-sized keys. Carrying this giant key would be awful to lug around. But it may not have dawned on Peter at that moment, but his instincts were right. Kingpin wasn't offering him the key to the city out of the kindness of his heart. Kingpin knew what he was doing. He knew that Spider-Man was the type of person that seeks approval from everyone around him. So what would happen if he managed to, say, have the world reject him? As Kingpin, he could attack and hunt down the wall crawler, and it would be a much better situation if he could isolate him. Create a rift between him and all of those that he seeks admiration from. Now we flash forward back to where we are, and we see Peter at this press conference at ESU. Now some would think, why would Peter be so proud of being the science editor at the Daily Bugle when he used to run a billion-dollar company? Well, that's because in this position, he worked his way from the bottom selling freelance pictures of Spider-Man to J. Jonah Jameson to get the respect of his peers. As the presentation begins, Cindy Lawton, the girl he graduated with, takes the stage to tell everyone that they face a problem that has exploded in the recent years: cheating. Their schools are ill-equipped to handle these types of plagiarists. For example, Amanda Clarksdale used a trans-dimensional doorway to find an alternate reality version of herself that happened to be a genius and have her write her paper. Michael Prescott bribed a hidden cell of Skrull refugees to help him falsify control results in a paper that was published in 3 separate academic journals. And finally, and perhaps the saddest of them all, is Ricky London. He literally sold his soul to Mephisto in exchange for a passing score. That's why we're working on a new program called The Watcher. The Watcher uses cutting-edge anti-plagiarism technology that incorporates Cerebrotech. To celebrate this moment, she'd like to call on one of their own recent alumni, former head of Parker Industries and current science editor, Mr. Peter Parker. Everyone claps as Peter heads to the stage, but before he could say anything, Cindy goes on stage and that she has a paper here that Peter wrote when he was a grad student. Watcher here will review it and determine its sourcing. The paper is titled, Determining Patterns in the Random, Chaos Theory and the Probability of Distribution. Peter looks up and realizes something. This isn't going to end well. The scan finishes and the computer shouts, Fraudulent analysis confirmed, real author, Dr. Otto Octavius. Now, there is a simple explanation for this, everyone. This happened during the period where Otto Octavius had taken over the body of Peter Parker. He was Peter Parker. And while being Peter, Otto found out that Peter never finished his graduate studies and decided to do it himself. The problem with that? He would have to reveal to everyone that he is Spider-Man, which is something that he can't do. So now everyone thinks Peter Parker, former head of Parker Industries, is a fraud. In turn, that leads him to losing the respect of his peers and even costing him his job at the Bugle. And the one person who actually understands all of this, well, she finds it all extra funny. At least Mary Jane somewhat understands the situation. But the worst person to find out is Aunt May. Peter wanted to explain everything that happened with Otto, but he couldn't. So flash forward to right now, where Peter is head deep in alien facehuggers with no chance of survival. The kicker to this whole thing is that he even reworked Otto's paper and came up with a better theory based on movement patterns. Wait, there is a pattern here. These alien portals, they're interconnected. If he could find the right one. Peter climbs up and he makes his way to one of the portals, and Black Cat asks him, "What the hell are you doing?" Peter tells her something that will stop these guys, or something that will cause me to die a horrible, painful death. So who knows? But if I do die, bye, Felicia. As Peter gets closer to the portal, he prays to God that that wasn't his last joke. All he wanted to do was help people. He wasn't doing this for the glory of it all. Everyone in his life, they helped him every time he wanted to stop, and because of them, it was all worth it. Yeah, he could live with that being the end of his story. But then again, we don't get to choose these types of things. And just then, Peter smacks into the windshield of a ship piloted by Mysterio. Mysterio shouts, "These fools believe they're under attack from another world. Little do they know that it is I, Mysterio." Peter knocks in the window, and Mysterio looks back, and he sighs. Ah, well, fun while it lasted. Later, beating up Mysterio and hanging him from the side of a building, he says that he wanted to try something different. He felt like he was in a rut, always trying the same thing over and over, making the same mistakes. So he thought, why not just try to murder everyone at once? Go for the brass ring. Make that one big gesture to turn his whole lousy life around. Does it make any sense? And Peter tells him, actually, it does. It really makes sense. Thanks, bobblehead. It is now at this moment that Peter realizes that even with everything going wrong, everything coming down, he's lost. Maybe coming here was a mistake. All he knows is that he needs her with him. Now we go to him explaining all of this to Mary Jane and how he got here and the beginning of our new Spider-Man story to a glorious beginning. Mary Jane tells him, whoa, 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 take it easy. She kisses him and then leans back telling him, we're in this together. We always have been. The next morning in Mary Jane's apartment, Mary Jane tells Peter, morning, Tiger. Sleep okay? Peter says that he did, but he has to admit that he woke up every hour to make sure she was still there. She hugs him, telling him, yeah, she's still here. She's kind of processing everything, though. Peter says, yeah, that's something always got in our way. And Mary Jane laughs, telling him, well, I guess it's a good thing that it's not going to be a problem anymore, right? We've been given a chance to start over. Sure, the circumstances are a little unusual, but the thing is, I love you, and I never really stopped. As she gets out of bed, Peter says maybe they could, just stay here a bit longer. Mary Jane asks, doesn't he have a class to get to? Which she's not wrong about. He is supposed to meet Kurt Connors. All-around good guy who turns into a not-so-good giant sewer monster with alarming regularity. And now he's running wild on Empire State Campus. Peter tells the students of Kurt to not panic. He's going to need them all to exit the building. Wait! Didn't you hear him? That's the lizard! And in his lizard form, Kurt tells the class, please accept my apologies. This is one of my former assistants, Peter Parker. Peter asks, why are you introducing me? And why are these people not being eaten? Cindy clears her throat, stating that Professor Connors here is not a threat to anyone. He's an esteemed member of their faculty. Kurt says, please give him a moment. And then he begins to change back into his human form, stating that this might make things a little easier. Peter asks what's going on, and Kurt tells him, it's all right, and perfectly understandable given my past history. But these days, I have these mutations into the lizard very much under control, thanks to a surgically embedded adamantium-encased inhibitor chip. With it, if I'm the lizard and tried to harm any human being, even so much as they hiss in the wrong direction, the chip will paralyze me till I eventually revert back to my human form. It's a breakthrough that we pioneered right here in this very class. Peter says, right, so how were you able to teach again? Cindy tells him that since Professor Connors generously signed over dozens of patents, they felt it was only fair to give him a chance, provided he could address their concerns regarding the safety of his students, that is. Peter says that he's still a little confused. He was told about an opportunity, and Kurt says, isn't it obvious? I'd like you to join this class. It would seem that you have some reservations on the subject. Peter tells him it's not that he doesn't appreciate the offer, it's just not really what he saw himself doing. He's already got a lot on his plate. And Kurt says, really? You just lost a job in a major ethics scandal. You don't need to explain it. I'm sure there's more to the story than there seems to be. Right now, I just wanted to return the favor for all of your help all of these years. This is an accelerated program for the best mind. What better chance than to work with the head of Parker Industries? We aren't doing this for the school. It's just for us to have the pure joy of discovery. Peter laughs. Science for science sake. And Kurt says, that's it. Underneath all the perpetually running late and weird talking to yourself habit, there's a truly brilliant mind in there, Mr. Parker. Plus, before you make a decision, there's something that you must see. Kurt shows Peter a machine, and Peter asks, what is it? So Kurt tells him, yes, the isotope genome accelerator. And Peter asks, what is that doing here? This thing can do some crazy stuff. Like, I don't know, cause a radioactive spider to bite someone on the hand and turn them into Spider-Man? But as Peter's quietly thinking that to himself, Kurt goes on stating that as they know, the accelerator is often used to transmute characteristics from one organism to another. So what they're trying to do is reverse engineer the effects. So They can isolate and divide the hybrid properties. Peter says, like a lizard and a human, huh? Kurt tells him precisely, which is why I was in my other form when you came in. Diagnostic tests, But just then a voice calls out to put the pencils down, the test is over. Everyone looks over and they see Taskmaster and Black Ant charging into the classroom. Kurt quickly changes into the lizard, but as he tries to attack, he's frozen in place by the inhibitor. Peter sighs, asking, really? The one time we could have used the lizard? He begins to think about how he can change into Spider-Man and not be seen, and then he comes up with an idea. He asks Taskmaster if that's a mask or his real face. Taskmaster grabs him, saying, what did you say? And Ant-Man says, not cool, man. He's sensitive about that. Peter then goes on telling him, oh, I'm sorry. It's just, I know it used to be a mask, but then I heard something happen. Did a superhero rip off your face? Was it Wolverine? I bet it was him. Taskmaster throws Peter into a table of chemicals, and while everyone is looking away, he mixes two of the liquids, creating a smoke bomb. Taskmaster begins to cough, asking, what the hell is that? And Peter jumps through in costume, telling him, science happened! Sorry if that doesn't sound very intimidating. Taskmaster grabs Peter from behind, and just as Black Ant returns to his normal size, Peter webs up his face, pulling him forward. As Black Ant gets closer, Peter jumps behind Taskmaster, grabbing his head, slamming it into Black Ant's mask. With them knocked out, Peter says, I guess I should be going, because it looks like everyone's okay. Well, almost everyone. Here, pal, let me give you a hand. Wait a sec, I know you. As Peter reaches down to help someone, that person is also Peter Parker. The next day, Peter decides it's time to try and live a normal life by going to the bowling alley with Mary Jane and his roommate Randy. Also Randy's ex Nora, because what's a double date without inviting someone's ex? As Nora says that they can settle their difference with the game, she gets a notification on her phone. She plays the video clip and it's the news reporting that there's total anarchy in the streets of Lower Manhattan. Mary Jane whispers, asking if he needs to go, and Peter says that he actually doesn't. Meanwhile, over in Manhattan, the buildings are destroyed and trampled by the Tri-Sentinel. One of the officers on the scene calls to dispatch that they're going to need the Avengers for this one. The Tri-Sentinel is loose again. And just then a familiar voice says, listen to him, new cops. This guy knows his stuff. He wins the Daily Double on today's obscure supervillain Jeopardy! Just then, Spider-Man swings by to fight the Tri-Sentinel. Now, some would wonder, how is Peter Parker in two different places at once? And that is a completely valid question. You see, what happened is, when Taskmaster and Black Ant attacked the ESU, Peter provoked Taskmaster to throw him so that he could get away from everyone and change into costume. But what happened was Peter accidentally turned on the isotope genome accelerator, the one that Kurt Connors was trying to reverse engineer by splitting organisms. Well, the result is that we have two Peter Parkers. The two tested each other to make sure that each of them was the real deal, but this leaves the question, who's going to be Spider-Man? The real Peter quickly learned that with all of this happening, his other half was the one who had gained his spider powers. He tried to climb up a building and he fell off. He almost got hit by a car because he doesn't have a Spidey sense as well. It's weird though, instead of being the hero looking down on everyone while he takes out the bad guy, he's now the guy in the crowd looking up, watching Spider-Man take out the bad guy. Maybe this could be the start of something new, a chance to settle down, go back to school, get a job that he's not constantly fired from. All of that was going well until he received a text from Kurt asking if he would come in. While Spider-Man goes and deals with the Tri-Sentinel rampaging the city, Peter takes the subway over to ESU. Kurt asks if he's given any thought about joining the class, and Peter says that actually he's been thinking about it nonstop. He was just wondering if maybe he could have a little more time to decide. He's really grateful, but his life is Kurt stops him. Crazy? Never gonna change, Peter. A new quarter starts in a week, so you have until then. But really, I wanted to take a look at something big. Kurt turns on a monitor, and on it is a lab rat. Kurt tells him it's Horatio. They've been watching him and wanted to make him the first test subject of their experiment. Here, Horatio would run the maze in record time, and now after exposing him to the converted accelerator, there are two Horatios. When tested again, Horatio 2 would run the maze with no issues, or the original one would get stuck. When Horatio 1 was placed on a wheel, he would outperform Horatio 2. If you could, please bring the Andro gauge over, would you? Need to run a test. Peter says sure, and he looks over at the tool and he notices that he doesn't really know what any of them are, which means that Spider-Man got his science smarts. As Kurt grabs what he needs, Peter asks what's next, and Kurt says, well, we obviously can't do human testing, it's simply too dangerous. Peter says, wait, did you say dangerous? Kurt tells him yes. As it stands, they don't know how these abilities are divided or even the scope of it. It's simply aptitude and learned behaviors. Or could it be something deeper, like, for instance, emotional states or moral beliefs? Within each of them is a careful balancing act of opposing forces. What sort of person might be left if only half of you made it out? Imagine a trained soldier separated from their conscience, or training to protect civilians, or a world-class surgeon who suddenly had no commitment to his oath, do no harm. Peter thinks to himself that these are certainly possibilities. There's a push and pull inside of all of them, and how they resolve it determines everything about who they are. It's between, you guessed it, power and responsibility. Over in Manhattan, Spider-Man rides the Tri-Sentinel into the ground screaming, "Yee-haw!" As the days go by, Spider-Man continued to save the city with his newly acquired Tri-Sentinel, but he wasn't really doing much good. His fight with Stegron wiped out an entire wing of the Museum of Natural History. The fight with Hydra Man knocked out the power grid from Columbia Circle to Bronx. And Cyclone, well, less said about that the better. But even with all of that, Spider-Man still does get to do cool things. Sitting courtside at basketball games, gossiping with celebrities on talk shows, even cashing in on sponsors. Maybe he should go talk to him, see how he can superhero? He's gone too far. Spider-Man is now selling rides of swinging around the city. Out in the city, Spider-Man drops his Uber passenger, telling him not to forget to rate him 5 stars. And now you can leave a tip. Just then, he gets a notification for a new ride that has been added to his queue. And Peter asks, "Can you give an old friend a lift? Maybe we can talk on the way." Spider-Man webs up a building, telling him, "Actually, you could never afford it. Surge pricing. Anyways, bye." Peter uses his web shooter, webbing up Spider-Man's legs, and he gets pulled up into the air. Spider-Man looks back. "Come on, dude, what are you doing?" As Peter is flailing behind him, he shouts, "We gotta talk! We have a problem!" Spider-Man asks, "You have a problem with your life?" Shocker. Spider-Man lands in a building and tells him, "Look, things might be going bad for Peter Parker, but Spider-Man, things are going pretty sweet. Besides, the city has never been safer. Didn't you see my awesome spider bot? Watch, I'll call it now. It's parked over by the Statue of Liberty." Peter shouts, "No! Don't call that thing, you idiot! You're not protecting the city, you're trashing it. We never did any of this stuff for money or fame, we do it to help people. Remember the last time we acted this way? Not caring about anything around us? It was the night that Uncle Ben died." Spider-Man looks at him. "Sorry, but who?" Before Peter could even try to explain, Spider-Man webs him up and tells him, "Look, don't try and follow me this time, okay?" Later, once that webbing dissolves, Peter heads back to Kurt's class and he sees the students holding a vigil for Horatio 1 and 2. Peter asks what's going on and Kurt says it's a sad day. Both of their test subjects, Horatio 1 and 2, passed away this morning. The class is really broken up about it. It would seem that this puts an end to all of their hard work. Peter then asks, what does he mean? And Kurt explains that their experiment turned out to have fatal after effects. It's hard to say, but it seems that the longer the two doppelgangers are isolated, the worse their separation symptoms became. It started benign enough, loss of learned skills, behavioral issues, but it seemed to progress to more serious memory loss. Things then escalated rapidly from there, essentially motor function, spatial awareness, cognitive ability all declined until, well, it's like they needed their other half, and without it, they're nothing. Thankfully, we never tested this on humans. Peter nervously laughs. Yeah, thank heavens. Okay, so let's recap everything. Peter Parker is Spider-Man no more, and also Spider-Man is not Peter Parker anymore. They were separated. It's going badly, though, too. Not only is Spider-Man saving the city with no regard for the destruction he's creating, but he also has no sense of personal responsibility for it. And it turns out that the experiment that divided them may end up killing the both of them. The only chance that they've got now is to use the isotope genome accelerator to reverse all of this. However, there's some problems with that as well. First, he has no way of getting it, and there's no way that he could explain everything to Doc Connors without giving up his identity. He could call Black Cat, but that could be more complicated than before. Well, Felicia isn't the only thief that he knows. There's also Boomerang, his roommate. So after a night of talking rather loudly about how there's no security at ESU and how the isotope genome accelerator is just begging to be stolen, Boomerang took the bait. After that, it was a matter of stealing the stolen goods from the thief. And later up on a building, Peter calls to Spider-Man, who's comfortably relaxing in a web hammock, stating, "This ends now." Spider-Man shows up telling him, "Oh hey, what's up?" And Peter says, "Why do you seem so distracted?" And Spider-Man tells him, "Oh, no reason. Just the giant robot army flying overhead." Peter thinks to himself that it's just like the saying goes. While you're making plans, that's when life happens. Also, when armies of Tri-Sentinels attack. As the Tri-Sentinels land, Spider-Man starts to run away, and Peter shouts, asking, "Where are you going?" Spider-Man says, "Sure, I could get myself killed trying to save a few tourists now, or I could run away and save countless tourists in the years to come when things are less scary." Peter looks back, seeing Spider-Man not paying attention to the Tri-Sentinel right behind him, and as it fires, Peter gets hit with a blast while pushing Spider-Man away. Spider-Man runs back yelling, "Oh man, sorry! The blast came out of nowhere!" Peter coughs, telling, "Yeah, don't really know how your spider sense didn't warn you." Spider-Man tells him, "Right, oh yeah, spider sense was kind of a drag, so I turned it off. It's hard to get through an episode of Westworld when that thing's going off all the time." Peter tells him, "You could turn it off?" Spider-Man says, "Sure, as long as you don't mind the occasional sharp, blinding pain every once in a while." Peter groans, stating, "At least I'm gonna go out saving someone's life. Hopefully, Uncle Ben would have been proud." Spider-Man says, "Dude, why do you keep saying the name of the delicious brand of instant rice?" "But you know what? It doesn't matter. I will avenge your death. From now on, I am Peter Man, protector of the mediocre guys who never really made anything out of themselves." Peter says that maybe this is needed then. Finally understand that with great power must also come great responsibility. Spider-Man stares for a moment and says, "Yeah, nah." Spider-Man sighs, telling him, "It was worth a try. and he webs up the accelerator and pulls it off the ledge. As it crashes onto the ground, there's a bright blue explosion going off, and Spider-Man says, "That was a pretty good shot. Looks like we're about to sing a really moving duet here." Spider-Man says, "Man, you never get how annoying the jokes are until you're on the other side of them." Suddenly, the two Peters begin to merge, and from the blast, Peter webs out shouting, "Yeah! Can already feel myself trying to be funny again. It's me, Spider-Bot!" Seconds later, the commandeered Tri-Sentinel slams into another Tri-Sentinel, with Peter getting to work reprogramming all of them. And once the last of them is destroyed and rewired, Peter tells the others to leave the city and return back to where they came. The place that they came from happens to be an old hideout of the Life Foundation, which makes sense since they were the last ones to use Tri-Sentinels. They then went under years ago, so maybe Mendel Strum? On the ground is the broken, left for dead shell of a man known as Mendel Strum. Peter hurries over, telling him to hang on. He'll get him some help, and Mendel stops, telling him, "Guess my name, guess my..." And he passes away. Peter asks what is that supposed to mean, and that's when his spider sense begins to go off the charts. All of those reprogrammed to Tri-Sentinels begins to shout, "Guess my name, guess my name." And they all start rushing into the building, shooting into the central computer, and as the building collapses all around them, Peter is confused. He's standing there with the entire situation resolved, and he doesn't know why. He simply asks, "Okay, what happened?" Later in a government interrogation room, Taskmaster and Black Ant sit down with Garrett Stone of Homeland Security to discuss their latest job. Garrett tells them that last week they tried to steal the isotope genome accelerator. Who hired them? Black Ant sighs, stating that this is really disheartening. And Taskmaster says, "Yeah, where's S.H.I.E.L.D.? Garrett tells them that S.H.I.E.L.D. no longer exists, and Black Ant shouts, "That's a travesty! Look at this, we're being interviewed by guys in suits?" Black Ant and Taskmaster continue to make jokes, and there's a sudden explosion and an aircraft waiting outside. Taskmaster yells, "See? This is why you never interrogate a supervillain in a room with an exterior wall. Oh, and by the way, we were after no damn genome accelerator. The guy who hired us playing a totally different game." And over in an unsanctioned jungle, a man starts picking himself up, stating that he's so sorry. He was just looking for a little adventure, something to brag about to the guys back at home. The man tells him, "Yes, the struggle to survive amidst predators of all kinds. I understand it better than anyone could possibly imagine. I am a hunter, after all."
And there you have it, Spider-Man's New Beginning with Nick Spencer. Now, this first storyline I felt was okay, but the next bunch that he does are incredible. And that's what got me into doing the Spider-Man storylines here for you guys, because I couldn't wait to do the next one, and the one after that, and the big reveal with Black Cat, and what's going on with Fred, I think his name is, the boomerang guy, you know, the villain in the story. Either way, guys, if you want to know more of what's happening to Spider-Man, then make sure you subscribe to our channel. He's one of my favorite Marvel heroes, so we will always be covering him right here on the Comicstorian channel. And if you want to chat more with me directly, then go on over to our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/eligiblemonster, where you can find me and the team hanging out every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, doing everything from comic book podcasts to playing Warframe and Final Fantasy XIV. Yeah, we do all that stuff over there, and we'd love to have you come over and join us. And if you see my hair turn purple again, that means we got a sub goal. They like to turn my hair colors. I'll see you next time.